Hi, everyone. We have author CaTyra Polland here, and she's going to tell us a little bit about herself.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is CaTyra Polland. I am the CEO of Love for Words, which is an editing boutique. So I help authors polish their manuscripts before they are published. I'm also an author myself. My first book is Professionalism, What's That? And that book covers different topics such as conflict management, code switching, also like informational interviews, how to dress for success, resumes, cover letters, all the important things that we need to learn to be in the workforce, either as an employee or as an entrepreneur, but that we don't learn in the classroom. So I decided to write my book, just to give people more information about that. And then my second book is Dear August, Love August, and this is a book of poetry. I published that in March. So a lot of different poems in there from experiences and observations. I am from Rochester, New York. I like to travel, and I also like shopping and spending time with friends and family.
Okay. Now, what inspired you to start writing?
I started writing in middle school. I enjoyed writing poetry, but there was a poetry contest that I entered and I was recognized for the poem. So ever since then, I decided to keep writing and I wrote more poems and I always loved English class, reading and writing. I was always one of those students that participated in the summer reading program so I could get my free pizza pan, personal pan pizza. So I've always loved reading and writing and that poetry contest really kind of sparked my interest. I've also written songs and different things like that. So it's been not too long since I left middle school, but but it's been a little bit. So that's really what sparked it, and then just encouragement from home and teachers also helped me continue my writing journey.
Okay. And how many books have you wrote?
I have written I've written, I believe it's four, and then I've also been included in three anthologies, so seven.
Okay. And
Yeah.
have you experienced writer's block?
Not really. It's not something I really encounter. I have taken long blocks of time away from writing,
Okay.
just because I haven't been inspired to do it. So, like I might step away from writing poetry for a few years or so, and then all of a sudden I'll have this, um, epiphany or whatever you want to call it, and then I'll end up writing a whole bunch of poems, which is how Dear August, Love August came about. Actually, there's a lot of poems that I wrote in high school in there and then as I became a young adult, I also wrote some more poems that are included in there. So I've taken breaks from poetry. I wouldn't necessarily call it blocks. I just didn't have the inspiration to write. So I didn't.
Okay. And are you on social media?
I am. I am on Instagram. My handle is at Polland LLC. Also, Twitter and Facebook is the same at Polland LLC. The name of the boutique is Love for Words. So that's where you would find me. And all of my handles are also on my website, pollandllc.com.
Okay. Thank you. And how did you come up with the title and the covers?
So, professionalism, what's that? I wanted it to convey that. Um, of course, that is the question, but that is subjective. So, as I'm sure you and I know, and probably some of our listeners, there are different expectations of what is professional. So, it's very timely, for example, that certain hairstyles are considered professional versus unprofessional, or certain hair types are considered professional and unprofessional. So, as you can see, right now, my hair is straightened. So in most work environments, that's considered acceptable and professional. But yourself, of course, you have box braids. And as you know on the news, there are so many women who are discouraged from wearing box braids and
Mhm.
women who have 4C or 4B hair. So I just wanted to present the title Professionalism, What's That as a question because it is subjective. I mean, just because one person disagrees doesn't mean that it's not professional. And even on the cover, I have a woman, she's in a pantsuit. So I feel like something unique in and of itself. And she also has French tips. She has a French manicure. So why can't that be considered professional? So I wanted it to convey like a question mark, like, oh, that's an interesting looking cover. I wouldn't put those things together and think that's professional. So I kind of wanted to open people's eyes. I wanted to give like a 101 on what's typically accepted. But in that code switching chapter, I kind of dive into bucking against the system because it is so discriminatory, and realizing that there are elements that are not a part of mainstream that can still be professional, and that we have the choice whether or not we want to assimilate, and also that assimilation has cons, because so often that's the goal and we're taught that that's what we should aspire to, fit in. But I think it's important to recognize that it can be very harmful to people if they have to constantly deny who they are because we want this corporation to accept us, or our coworkers or our neighbors, etc. So I wanted to dive into that and make people question what it means to be professional.
Okay. Wow. And how long did it take you to finish that book?
I think it was like maybe 3 or 4 months. So what I did is I actually wrote the chapter titles first, and then I filled in all that information. It made it a lot easier instead of me trying to just, write freely. I had that as an outline. So then I was able to plug in the information to those chapters. So it didn't take me very long. And again, I included some personal experiences and some observations, and just wanted to make sure that resource was available to people who maybe never learned what it was, what is preferred in a work environment or preferred as an entrepreneur. It's something that's quick. So it's under 100 pages. So it's a refresher for some, and then an introduction for others. So I wanted to help people, get that background knowledge.
Are you writing a third book?
I actually just started writing my second book of poetry. So that is, I think I have like 4 or 5 poems right now. So I'll probably wrap that up maybe next year or the year after. Like I said, it has to come to me. I have to be inspired to write. So I can't put a timeline on that one.
Okay. And where can we purchase your books?
You can purchase all my books on my website, pollandllc.com, and that book will also be on there. There's also, you can see the clients that I've worked with on there, their book covers, who they are, things like that. I also have a podcast, Editor Knows Best, so you can visit my website to take a look at some of the interviews that I've done. And again, I interview authors much like yourself, and I just talk to them about their publishing experience, any advice they have for other writers, what the pros and cons of their experience was, who they're inspired by, things like that. So it's an opportunity for authors and writers to hear from their peers in the writing field.
Okay. And you're self-published?
Yes, I am. I have a publisher. She's a hybrid publisher. So she takes care of like the ISBN and the copyright and all of that, but I still have all of my rights to the book. So
okay. And how was that journey? Was that easy for you?
That was easy for me. It was, because like I said, I already knew her, so she was in my network, and I told her I wanted to write a book. So she took care of all the stuff that I knew I wasn't going to do, like the formatting and all of that. That's not my forte. So all I really had to do was write, and then being an editor, I edited the first version of my book, but the most recent republished, I did have another editor take a look at it, just because it's important to have someone impartial look at it, because I was too close to the material. But yeah, she took care of all the back end. She put it on Amazon and took care of all of that. So I had a smooth process with the publishing, and I definitely prefer to have those creative rights versus going through a traditional publisher.
Now, how do you think being a writer has helped you personally?
Well, for me, I know that writing has allowed me to, it's a channel for me to express my emotions. Typically, I don't like to, talk about vulnerability with other people. So being able to journal and things like that have really been helpful, because I'm still processing the emotions without telling other people until I'm ready to do that. So that's been really helpful. And then the poems, like I said, there are some personal poems in there that have helped me. One of them is called Mocha Chocolate, and it's dedicated to dark-skinned women and girls across the globe. because we know that colorism unfortunately does still exist and something that we are still overcoming. I decided to write that just as an ode to us, and recognizing, our beauty and that we are valuable and important, and just recognizing, the impact of colorism, not just on dark skinned people, but, on light skin and dark skin, and how it's just really negative, but we have to have a positive outlook on it and know that we can change that. So that's like one of the poems that helped me work through that, one of the struggles that I've had. So writing has definitely been therapeutic for me.
Are there any tips you have for aspiring writers?
I would say do your research. So like when you're looking for either like your book cover designer or an editor or your proofreader or a publisher, just make sure that you are tapping into resources that are reputable. Not everything on the internet is credible. So just make sure that you do your due diligence and you're not just assuming that the first person who approaches you is the best fit for you. Take the time to get to know the team that you'll be working with, to make sure you're comfortable with them, that they can meet your expectations, things like that. So that's the most important thing, is to make sure you do your research when you're, working on publishing your book.
Okay. And is there anything else that you would like to tell us about your books?
I mostly focus on nonfiction. I was in an anthology where I did write a short story, but short stories are not really my thing. So, I tried it out, but I prefer nonfiction. And then also the clients I work with, most of them are nonfiction. So I tend to stick with nonfiction. I think it's easier. It's easier to get that information instead of making something up. So I prefer nonfiction. Okay.
Well, thank you so much. You can read a poem if you want to read a poem.
Okay. I'll read the one I told you about, the Mocha Chocolate Girls. Okay. All around the world, they deny your beauty. All around the world, they ignore your presence. They look in the mirror and see you, but hate you so much that they call you black. They say that you're too dark and that your rich hue is ridiculed. You're teased, harassed, or belittled, and sometimes you feel ashamed or inferior or even unhappy. You might self-loathe or cry or hide, but despite their words and ignorance, you persevere. You are not alone. You are not shameful or inferior, and you are not unhappy. You are all around the world. You're a force to be reckoned with. You do exist. You are beautiful and lovely. Mocha Chocolate Girls.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was a pleasure.